The secondhand market is going to get hit. I think there's a whole storm coming for, unfortunately, even people that, if you just take out the new market and you say, I don't care about buying a new car. It's not a wise financial decision anyway. I'm going to buy used cars. Well, now the used cars are $10,000 more than they used to be. And, we've had 5 years of sort of what I call COVID cars and newer technology and things that are very expensive to repair. Well, once those become the only vehicles left on the road, now the secondhand market's getting hosed with that same thing that it used to be under warranty. Well, now they're not.
Yes. A dear friend of mine, Brandon from Car Questions Answered. I mean, he's got a used car lot. His specialty is $5,000 and below priced cars. He doesn't know where he's going to get any. He's got like 7 cars left in inventory, and he doesn't know where he can go buy cars right now. Because every price point of car is being impacted as used car values start to move up again. I think we're destined to see a repeat of what we saw during COVID, where for one of the few times in my 73 years on this planet, used car values actually appreciated. And I think we're about to return to that. And that's not normal. And it's certainly not normal to have it happen twice in a 5-year period of time. Maybe I should have taken all of my money out of my annuity, and I should have invested it in used cars back in January, and I'd be sitting pretty today.
Right. Yeah. The thing that we preach against all the time is, don't overspend on a car. Don't buy a car as an investment. It's not going to appreciate. And then the past 5 years has been ridiculous.
It really has been.
What do you think the odds are that manufacturers say, oh, gosh, we plowed through all of our inventory on the lots. This is their opportunity to flush out all that inventory that's backed up on lots. And then they go back to the, oh, woe is us supply chain. Now it's back to MSRP purchasing, back to markups. What do you think the odds are?
I don't know. I haven't really given that any thought. And the reason I say I don't know is the supply chain is going to be so screwed up because it is until May that the tariffs are supposed to go into effect on parts.
Yep.
But the supply chain will be so screwed up because of tariffs on parts. And I know the ultimate goal here is to get more vehicles manufactured in the United States. I mean, that's the whole concept behind this, is to force the manufacturers to build more plants or utilize the plants that they have here more fully and build cars here. I get that. But that doesn't happen overnight.
No.
So even like Hyundai, who said, okay, we're going to invest $21 billion over the next few years. We're even going to invest $4 billion in a steel plant in Louisiana. Well, it ain't happening today. I mean, they're not producing the steel there today. So you can talk about it. You can try and plan for it. And the truth of the matter is, the only way you're going to get manufacturers to make the type of investment that would be required is to say that these tariffs are going to be permanent. Because if the option on the table is that, okay, well, maybe a month from now we'll remove them, well, then why would any of the manufacturers want to invest more money here in the States? So the threat has to be real, one would assume, to get these manufacturers to start investing billions. And the investment of those billions isn't going to create more jobs and more plants and more ability to produce vehicles for 2 or 3 years or more. I mean, you can't just say today, okay, we're going to build a factory and have it operational tomorrow. So I know I've heard plans that Mercedes-Benz is saying that they're going to cut back importing vehicles in the United States. Audi is saying that they're going to hold production of their imported. So will there be a shortage at a certain point? There could be. And what do we know when there's shortages? Prices go up artificially. Will the manufacturers use this as an excuse to get their inventory levels back down to 1 million cars a month as opposed to 3 million cars a month on dealers' lots? Perhaps, because they all said they learned lessons during COVID that we're never going to get the inventories to grow back to the levels they were at. Well, they have. It's all I can say is my crystal ball, which I bought at the dollar store, is partly cloudy at best. I just, if there is another great recession, or God forbid a depression, then we'll see like prices really come down because nobody will have any money and nobody will be able to buy anything. And that doesn't bode well for anyone. So my hope is that we don't revisit the Great Recession of 2008, and we sure as hell don't revisit the Great Depression of the 30s. But I don't know how you can look at what's going on and say, well, we should be good, because it doesn't feel good to me. I don't know how you feel about spending money at the moment, but I keep thinking whatever money I have, I want to just keep socking it away and putting it under my mattress, because I don't know what the future holds.
I've got, luckily, more years to retirement, which is bodes well for, near term, I'm not as worried about market crashes as someone that's older than me, but it is cyclical. So I don't know. It has felt due in the car market. It's felt due in the housing market. Man, you just look at the type of everything, credit card debt, personal debt, and then the cost of living has gone up so much. I know my insurance personally and my property tax almost doubled last year. So it just keeps chipping away at people trying to get in your wallet, and then less wages increase, which, if wages increase, well, car prices are going to go up too.
It's like this vicious circle or cycle. Yeah. It's just, it seems as if there's no end in sight. But I don't know I think if you polled most people, they would prefer to see the stock market go up, and they would prefer to see their 401k portfolios continue to rise, rather than to watch their alleged wealth that is in these 401 accounts dwindle. It is the hardest thing for people to do, and I'm sure you realize this, is to change and to accept change. People hate change. Okay. And so to take people who were even remotely comfortable with the way things had been and say to them, well, you're going to have to suffer pain for, well, we don't know for how long. I'm not sure most people would have said, okay, I'm in on that. I think human nature is, I don't want to have to suffer.
Yeah, especially in this country.
Especially in this country, because everything in this country is dictated by credit, because the whole economy has been based on, don't worry about you not having the money to pay for it. We've got the money to lend you so that you can just pay it back at your leisure and everything will be fine. And it seemed to kind of sort of work for the most part.
Yeah, for a while. I mean, when you have low interest rates on houses and cars, and boy, they really had a heyday there for over a decade of.
Yes.
We didn't learn any lessons from 2008. That's for sure.
Those who fail to learn from history will repeat it. and we're witnessing it again.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of money pumped into AI, software driven cars, everything is software defined vehicle.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of this money is being pumped into. It feels a lot like the .com bubble, where it's not that the internet is some bad idea back in the .com era. It was a great idea. It was before even iPhones and imagining app stores, but it was just the money got pumped in a little too early, and they were a little too aggressive. So then everybody pulled back, but it still happened. It was still the right play for them. It just took a lot longer than they thought.
Perhaps that's the lesson we'll learn about battery electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where all the manufacturers bought into it way too quickly, and thought that was the be all end all. And it could be the thing that destroys some of them.
Well, and like you said earlier, that goes back to administrations repetitively basically incentivizing this and pushing this
absolutely
agenda.
Yeah. Yes.
And then when we turn on a dime back to, oh, just kidding, you don't actually need that.
it is, when you think about it, it's amazing as a society that we've ever been able to advance as far as we have, considering the fact that since Roosevelt, nobody could serve more than 2 terms as president. So the longest period of time where you'd have the same basic agenda is 8 years.
Yeah.
How does anybody plan for anything?
Yeah, it's actually, from my perspective, is a case for getting rid of or reducing all these NGOs that are sort of dictating these regulations, and not saying, like, I want clean air. I don't mind catalytic converters, making cars burn cleaner. But at the same time, if something can't survive on its own without taxpayer subsidies, then it probably shouldn't exist. And I think EVs can survive eventually on their own in certain scenarios. I think they're great for commuting, and certain people love them, but I wouldn't. There are other scenarios that I don't think they're ready for. And I would imagine they're really frustrated with it. Ford, all these companies that had to play catch up with Tesla.
But the smartest of the bunch, at least in my opinion, was Toyota.
Yeah.
Where they said we're not 100% convinced that battery electric vehicles is really absolutely positively the future.
Yeah.
And we're not saying we're not going to build any, but we're saying we're going to jump in a little more slowly than everybody else, and maybe we'll expand our hybrid offerings. And what are the hottest vehicles in the market right now? Hybrids. Which I always thought, and people hated me for saying this, but I always described hybrids as the bridge to get people to battery electric vehicles at some point.
Yeah.
To say to people, it's either an internal combustion engine vehicle or it's a battery electric vehicle, I don't think that was a wise thing to say to people. I know from having spent as many years in retail automotive as I did, that one of the things I learned in sales is you always give people 3 choices, okay? Because if you give them 3 choices, they'll make one. If you give them 2 choices, it's like, I'm not choosing, I'm not deciding. And basically what happened for most of the manufacturers was, here's your choices: internal combustion engine or battery electric vehicle. And Toyota said, to hell with that. We've got 3 choices for you. You got an internal combustion engine vehicle, a hybrid vehicle, and a battery electric vehicle. And who's been the most successful automobile manufacturer on the planet?
Yeah.
That, Toyota. Because they realized you have to give people 3 choices. You give them 2 choices, they can't make a choice.
Yeah.
Or they choose not to make a choice.
And they were pretty wise. I think they really looked at American manufacturing. They have a ton of manufacturing in the United States, and they're not going to be hit super hard by these tariffs. They can just shift if they need to. I think they could shift. I mean, Tacoma engines, I believe, are built in Alabama and then shipped to Mexico for final assembly. But, maybe the transmissions get tariffed a little bit from Japan, but most of the stuff they can start sourcing directly from the U.S. if they need to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what most are going to try to do. But let's face it. I mean, one of the ways that they all these manufacturers keep their costs down is that the concept of a global economy has been the concept that the Western world has bought into for how many years, and to suddenly say, even though you might be able to buy this part cheaper over here, that you need to pay more and just build it in our country. Well, that kind of tears at the fabric of a global economy, and and everybody says it. It's because of the internet. Main Street's not that much different, say in Philadelphia, than it is in London, because the world is so interconnected today. So I'm just really not sure how all this will ultimately play out, other than for some extended period of time, we're all going to pay more for basic stuff.
Long term, the fear from many people is that they're worried that, once China gets large enough and all these other countries get large enough and they get their own middle class, they won't necessarily need us, but they'll also have all the manufacturing and the leverage. The only leverage we have in America right now is consumerism, which is not good leverage. we're a service-based, consumer-based economy, but people need us to buy their crap.
Yes.
So if we don't leverage that now, which is what this is the attempt to leverage that, is saying, well, this is our last play. This is our last set of cards. Hope this works. That's the way I look at it, is that looking down the road 20, 30, 40 years, it's like, well, what are we going to turn into if we continue to just be a consumer-based, service-based society here? Would it work? I don't know that it would.
I don't know that it would either. Here's the one thing I do know, that 20, 30, 40 years from now, I'm not going to be around, and neither are a lot of boomers. And I will say this, and people will be offended when I say it, but because we are in the fourth quarter or overtime of our lives as boomers, we don't really care. Okay, we don't care as much as perhaps we should. We just want to live out our final years and be okay.
But Zach will be here.
What? Yes, Zach will, and let him fend for himself. Damn it. I've done the best I can do. But no, I get what you're saying. But it's not like we haven't been going down this road for the last 50 years. This is a road that's well traveled at this point. We became a consumer-based, service-based economy forever ago. We let manufacturing leave how many years ago? We've encouraged our manufacturers to go find, and as consumers, we want to buy stuff that's cheap, cheaper. So there's got to be a reason that most goods are made in China. Okay, what would that reason be? Because the cost to produce them is lower. And if you said to most Americans, okay, you can buy this shirt for $20 because it was made in China, or if you would prefer and you only want to buy American goods, that same shirt $65, I'm thinking most Americans are going to go, I'll take the shirt from China. Okay, given the choice. And so yes, I agree. I don't know how it looks 20 years from now. And perhaps this is a battle that should have been fought 20 years ago. I don't know. I am this certainly is not my strength. Ask me how to sell a car. I can help you with that.